The iPhone 8 Plus came out 6 years ago alongside the iPhone 8 and just shortly before the iPhone 10, and so even with that older home button design, it still has the same specs as the iPhone 10. It will also not be receiving the iOS 17 update. Hey, how's it going? I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and for those who love the form factor of the iPhone 6, 7, and 8, the current iPhone SE is a no-brainer. It's exactly the same body and design, just with updated specs and 5G compatibility. But the iPhone 8 Plus has never received any such upgrade, leaving it in a strange place. It was the end of an era, and yet today it's still a very capable device on iOS 16. And while it hurts not to receive iOS 17, that doesn't in any way make the phone obsolete. So today we ask the question, how does the iPhone 8 Plus hold up in 2023? The iPhone 8 Plus isn't too different from its smaller counterpart, but I am making two separate videos for the devices, and it's because, as stated, there's no direct successor for the 8 Plus. The closest thing to a successor would probably be the iPhone XR and the 11, phones that are no longer being sold by Apple, and they don't have home buttons anyways. As it's being left on iOS 16, there will be no plus-sized home button iPhone anymore officially supported, marking the end of an era extending all the way back to the iPhone 6 Plus in 2014. Luckily, losing iOS support is no death sentence, and the phone will still be able to run basically any app for the next few years. And ultimately, you're getting an experience not far from the iPhones that'll run you over $1,000, just in a more affordable and less feature-rich package. Because the 8 Plus is the final large home button iPhone, it can be surprisingly coveted and has always retained some pretty high used market value, and this actually can still be the case, though it's definitely a lot cheaper than it used to be. You'll be met with a lot of listings at about $200 as soon as you look up the 8 Plus on eBay.com, and that's not a good deal. If you keep scrolling though, you'll find closer to $100, albeit you need to be a bit wary of the condition they're coming in. I was able to find decent looking phones for about $120. It varies a lot, but it's not much cheaper than the iPhone 10, which I just recently reviewed, if at all cheaper in the first place. And perhaps that's not too unexpected. There's lots of phones that could replace the iPhone 10. The 8 Plus is kind of on its own. Now that being said, even if you really do, for whatever reason, want that large home button iPhone, and there's some good benefits, it's probably not going to be worth it for you to actually purchase one. If you have one right now and you enjoy using it, feel free to keep doing so. Battery life can be a significant factor, and you might be having some trouble there. It is a 6-year-old phone. You can check the battery health by going to Settings, Battery Health, and that percentage there tells you how much of the original capacity is still remaining. So as you approach 80%, that's when it's going to start to get bad, and once you're at and below that, you'll probably experience some inconsistent performance. You can get that battery replaced from Apple for $50. With a good battery, this phone still performs pretty darn well. It's not the fastest thing in the world, but it runs iOS 16 pretty spiffily, and that's the benefit of it not getting iOS 17. It's never really going to be slow. If you are still having trouble with a good battery, you could look at storage. This thing came in at 64 or 256 gigabytes. If you're reaching that limit, you could clear up some space or even reset the phone, restore it to factory settings, and that might help speed things up. But ultimately, the phone is 6 years old. Your expectations should only be so high going into using it. If you're looking at buying an iPhone 8 Plus, I strongly recommend instead opting for the iPhone 11. I'll link reviews in the description, but basically iPhone 11 will have support for another couple years. It's got much better cameras, it's got solid battery life, it's got that full screen design, which isn't a bad thing. The adjustment isn't nearly as cumbersome as you might be thinking. You'll get used to it extremely quickly, but let's back up here and look at the design of the iPhone 8 Plus. The front of the phone is classic iPhone. You've got thick bezels and the haptic home button, which acts as Touch ID or a fingerprint sensor. Some people still swear by this and prefer it over Face ID. In any case, it's fast and reliable and absolutely still does the job. The iPhone 8 Plus is one of the final iPhones to have 3D Touch. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it because Apple's pretty much got rid of it, but it is technically still here. And this phone really is quite large, with the display coming in at 5.5 inches, but with the body of the phone itself being closer to the size of a Max iPhone today. Don't be fooled by the numbers. The iPhone 10, for example, has a 5.8-inch display, but feels significantly smaller than the 8 Plus because the extra size is gained vertically rather than in the width. The Retina display here is still quite nice, even if it is the older LCD, coming in at a simple 1080p resolution with a slightly higher pixel density than the smaller iPhone 8, and notably a higher resolution than the newer iPhone XR and 11. The screen is nice, and so is the overall build, with the same materials being used in the newest iPhones today. This was the first iPhone to bring the rear glass panel, and it's complemented with the curved rounded aluminum frame that has the phone feeling super comfortable to hold and use, even if it's going to be a little unwieldy for those with small hands. The glass is here for wireless charging, and with that we also have fast charging for those with the appropriate accessories. The phone is water resistant and will survive a quick drop in the toilet no problem, though I don't recommend testing that theory if you can avoid it for multiple reasons. I myself actually used the iPhone 8 Plus for about a month back years ago, right leading up to the iPhone XS launch, just to try it out compared to the iPhone X I'd been using, and I remember being pleasantly surprised by how much I liked it. I actually appreciated the larger size, and battery life especially was a big one, as the iPhone X really wasn't that good in that department, and that goes double for the quite small iPhone 8. So the 8 Plus is bigger than the iPhone 8 and has a bigger battery, but it also has an extra single gigabyte of RAM, making for 3 gigs to go along with the A11 Bionic chipset. While that might not sound great, Apple's mastered the art of software optimization, and I'm happy to say iOS 16 feels pretty good on this device, with little slowdown and just a few hiccups here and there when just running through the OS. Again, as mentioned though, performance does vary device to device, but I personally wasn't having trouble. Alright, let's go ahead and talk about one of the best features of the 8 Plus when it came out, the cameras, as we have two 12 megapixel sensors, one telephoto, one wide, giving 1 and 2 times zoom, as well as allowing for portrait mode photos that can't be done on the smaller iPhone 8. The selfie camera is 7 megapixels, recording video in 1080-30. It's fine, good enough for FaceTime, but it's the back cameras I'm personally more interested in looking at. This was only the second time Apple had the dual camera system, and it's something my mom always really loved since she had gotten her 8 Plus many years back. She only recently upgraded, so a lot of these photos you're seeing here were taken by her over the years. All these portrait shots are of my younger brother, and while the main sensor is definitely better quality than the telephoto 2x zoom lens, it is still really nice to have that kind of level of versatility. These are the same cameras as in the iPhone X, albeit the telephoto isn't optically stabilized, but basically you're getting the photos that were top of the line in 2017. And today, 6 years later, well, you get results that were top of the line 6 years ago. These aren't bad photos by any means, but they also really can't be compared to the newest smartphones, as there have been big jumps in photography. But outdoors and or in ideal lighting, the iPhone 8 can take a heck of a good shot, and as said in my recent iPhone X video, the nice thing about this era of phones is even though they are already losing iOS support, the cameras on these smartphones were pretty decent in 2017, and so they can still hold their own today and in the very least get the job done. There's no huge generational leap like there was in phones a full decade ago, for example. That said, when we get into lower light situations, we do start to see the age more clearly, with blurry, grainy photos often being the norm, no night mode to be found. Doesn't mean the phone can't capture the moment and memory just fine, but you should temper your expectations with a phone of this age. And taking a bunch of shots at once is always a good idea to make sure that you get one that turns out, especially with portrait mode, as that can end up being pretty inconsistent on the older hardware. Video from the back can be filmed in 4K at up to 60 frames per second. This is 30, but it looks great, and this was the first iPhone to do 4K 60, which is cool. Overall, the camera is a lot like the rest of the iPhone 8 Plus. Really good in the right situation, but you do need to keep your expectations tempered. 6-year-old phone means inevitable issues, slowdowns, inconsistencies, annoyances. This will all occur no matter how many updates Apple gives, and with no iOS 17 coming fall 2023, the iPhone 8 Plus will get a couple years of security updates, but we have no new features ever approaching the horizon. With the death of the final large home button iPhone comes the end of an era. One I'm not sure all of us were ready to see end, but hey, time makes fools of us all, or something like that. I don't know why I'm trying to get philosophical. This is a review of a smartphone. Either way, I think we're right about done here. Make sure you leave in the comments, anyone who has the iPhone 8 or 8 Plus, just your experiences, how it's working for you, the iPhone X as well. How do you feel about not getting iOS 17? Do you think it's a big deal? Make sure you let me know, and if you found this video interesting or helpful, maybe hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content just like this. Shout out to the channel members for making this all possible. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and I will see you all next time.